And then in the last is probably I'd say my nap of the meeting, to be honest.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Roll up, indeed, for Aintree's Grand National Festival. 3 days of classy action. Cannot wait. Headlined by the big race over 4 and 2/4 miles. Very much looking forward to that on Saturday. Alongside me, Jake and Dan, as ever. And Jake, I feel this year that Aintree looks, as it did last year, like a proper meeting. Full fields, strong fields. The handicaps might not be quite up to scratch in my view, but I think the graded races are really good.
Yeah, I think it's a great little meeting. What was quite interesting is Willie Mullins was saying beforehand how he's probably going to send quite a small team, and he's ended up sending, I'd say, a fairly big team. I mean, I guess compared to him, it's all relative, but
it is the C team, though, really, for the most part, isn't it? With exception, yeah, with some headliners, and then he's just gone. There's a space free on the boat. You go as well.
Chuck him in, yeah. But yeah, so he's actually got a bigger team than I think many were expecting. So yeah, I think the meeting holds up well. I think we've got some good graded action, and we've got some good handicaps, and it's a good mixture of everything. And as a few people have commented already, it's good to not have this Ante-Post build up for months and months and get them all on side already. You know, we've only had a week to look through them all, so we can all form opinions, and hopefully we get some winners.
Yeah, do you know what? I kind of feel like that's a bit of a breath of fresh air, to be honest. But there you go. Maybe that's just me. Dan, how are you, sir? It's been very sunny today all around the country. I know it's going to be sunny for the next 3 days at Aintree. What's the weather like over at Market Raisin Way?
It's the same as it everywhere else, with sparkling
Nice.
sunshine, glistening. It was just the perfect day you want to spend in a studio for 7 hours like you did today, where there's no windows, no air, or any light whatsoever.
Yeah, and
another
a lot
splendid
of
day for
thinky
you.
chat from myself as well, which didn't help.
Same old.
You're not wrong. It is time for our entry preview, of course. We'd love to reach a like goal of 200. That would be great. And do comment down below with who you fancy for the big race, the Grand National. It's obviously very competitive, as it always is. I think about 7-8 to 1 the field this year. Loads of horses have a chance. So do let us know what you think. We're going to start by looking at Thursday's action. And it's pretty imminent, really, by the time you'll be watching this. And we won't go into it as much detail as we are with Friday and Saturday, but we are going to start with the Aintree Hurdle. And Dan, I'll come to you. Constitution Hill, Lossiemouth, Wadu, and then others. What's your take on the race?
23 days later, we get the clash we should have had. So happy days. Good thing the mares can actually run in open grade ones. Otherwise, my word, this would be a drab affair. They've now got 4 of the 7 in here, and one of the others is Tell Her the Name, I think. Or is it now even more? No, it's 4 of the 7, isn't it? It's plenty of them anyway. It's a strange one, and it's a clash I was always interested to see when Constitutional got to an Aintree Hurdle. I thought this would be the most vulnerable he'd probably ever be after a long season. Not because the bare form, obviously beating Charge, has been pointed out often enough. He won as well as he wanted to, but 2.5 does stretch him. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He's all speed. So this does demand a bit more about against a mare who is probably a better 2.5 mile than she's a pure 2 miler. Fascinating clash to watch. Not a race I'll have a bet in. I don't think you need to in a race like this. I think it's very much one to just enjoy. And yeah, I'm just glad we got the race we should have had, say, just over 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm quite keen on Ward Who to run a big race up against the front two in the market. She's done nothing but improve. She improves sort of £10 every run, and she's now up to us in the early 140s, also early 150s after the Martin Pipe. And who knows whether she could improve again if she does. And it should be certainly there or thereabouts towards the end of the race. And over a 2.5 mile trip, could Constitution Hill be a little bit vulnerable? I say he might be. Lossiemouth maybe a little bit better at Cheltenham. That does give Wadu a chance, I think, to really show what she can do. Jake, what's your take on it all?
Yeah, it's a fascinating race. As Dan said, not one you need to have a bet in, not one I'll be having a bet in, that's for sure. But I can see why people are getting into Lossiemouth, at the bigger price, just over, as Dan said, what I think is probably her optimum trip rather than Constitution Hill's optimum trip being 2 miles. So be very interesting to see what happens there. I was not expecting to see Woodhu turn up in a Grade 1 20 odd days after winning that handicap. But I mean, with the way she won it and the way that she's unbeaten, I guess you may as well have a go at it. I thought they probably would have kept her back for Punchestown for the Grade 1 there. But perhaps they'll still go on to that. Very interesting race, but yeah, not one that we need to get stuck into betting wise, that's for sure.
As Wood, who's like now biggest fan after the saving act she did for you on the first, do you give her like any chance of even threatening to get involved here?
I think she could threaten to get involved, but I don't see her being good enough to go on with the first two when they kick, when they kick on. Um, but the beauty with her is she's got a string of ones next to her name, hasn't she? We don't actually know where her ceiling is, so I guess this is a bit of a fact-finding mission to see if she is a Grade One proper mare or if she just was very well handicapped.
I love the fact that Gordon's sending her there, though. I think it really adds to the race, doesn't it? It
Yeah,
adds a little bit of intrigue, has us all talking about it, which is what you want. Jake, I'll stick with you for anything else on Thursday. So we got the Manifesto, the first of four Grade Ones in a row. Then we got the Juvenile Hurdle Grade One, the Bowl, then the Aintree Hurdle, and then we got the Fox Hunters and the Red Rum and the Bumper at the end of the play. Anything appeal to you from the undercard, Jake?
yeah. I mean, I've got a fair few. I'll start with the first, Imperial Pass. I really like him, really fancy him. I looked at the race originally and was kind of not sure which way I'd end up going. But the closer and the more I looked at it, yeah, the more I really like Imperial Pass. He's actually unbeaten in the months of March and April. He's got 5 wins from 5 starts in the spring. So clearly this time of year he thrives. And we know from last year he disappointed at the DRF before going on and winning the Aintree Hurdle. And then also winning the Grade 2 Select Hurdle on good ground at Sandown, where he was under the Grade 1 winner's penalty. So I think this is his time of year. I don't think he's done anything over fences to suggest that he's not up to this level. And, Django by the vibes weren't exactly great when Nicky spoke a couple of weeks ago at Newbury. So I'd be happy to take on Django, but obviously Imperial Pass has been backed into favourite now. That's obviously the William Mullins effect. Interestingly, put first time pieces on, but yeah, I'd be all over him in that. In the anniversary, I would give a small squeak to Mercia. I know obviously this race is completely cut up now, so it's a bit of a Boodles rematch, isn't it, between most of these? But put your hands together, very, very short. Obviously, he was a really good winner. Marcia was only 8.5 lengths behind him that day, though, and she was trying to give him £6 at Cheltenham. She's now going to be getting the £7 mares allowance, so she's got a £13 swing of the weight. So I think that at least sets her good enough to place. Hopefully, it could set her good enough to have a good go at him. And then Hoy Senor is another one that I actually am quite keen on.
I
His
would
record,
never have guessed that in a million years.
I
That's
know.
hit me.
Well, the problem I have with Grade One and Balance Tower is they had good to soft ground at Kempton over Christmas. And they both absolutely bombed it. Spillane Tower couldn't pick up at all. Obviously, there was travel issues as well. Great Dawning ended up being pulled up. Like, I just don't think either of them want this proper spring ground. Whereas a Hoist and I think absolutely loves it. Obviously, he's placed in the bowl, finished second the last 2 years. Last year, he actually finished second behind Jerry Colomb, and Jerry Colomb had everything in his favour. He had the soft ground that he needed, and Hoist and was only half a length behind. So I think that he's got everything in his favour. He showed the most zest he showed in ages when they allowed him to go from the front in the Gold Cup. Obviously, he took that tumble where he just literally lacked concentration, put one of his legs through the fence and just tripped the other side. So he's prone to putting in an error like that. But I think that he has a really good chance in that race. And then just one more that I'll flag in the Fox Hunters. Lifetime Ambition's been a bit of a project for me because he loves these national fences so much. Obviously, he placed in the 2022 Sefton where he was off a mark of 151. It was supposed to be like a bit of a spin around just to have a look at the fences before the Grand National at the end of the year. And he ended up finishing fourth, loved the fences, tired a bit in the end. You can forgive that for considering the weight he was carrying. And he was behind the likes of an Al Dancer and a Guest Killy, who obviously were absolute stalwarts of the Grand National fences. So that was a really good run. He then led in the National for about 9 fences and got carried out, jumped them again with aplomb. This is more his trip. It's been a year of plan in the making because last year he was supposed to go for this race, but they didn't realise that he had a Grade 1 start in the last 18 months, so he was ineligible to qualify for the race. So they had to hold him back. They've held him back. They've now got Rob James riding. He's ridden the last twice in February and March. He absolutely bolted up into some point to point. So he's primed for the day, loves the fences. I think he'll have a great chance in the Fox Hunters.
Okay, good stuff, Jake. Some nice selections there. I'm going to put up a couple myself. I think Saint-Brouilly in the Red Rum. I know it's not soft ground like it was last year. Some of his best form has come on soft ground, but I don't think there's any reason to suggest in this form that he won't handle slightly quicker conditions. He's off the same mark as he was from winning last year, and Harry Cobden's on board today or tomorrow, or whenever you're watching this. And I don't think it would be the strongest Red Rum in the world personally. So I think he's got a really good chance back to that handicap mark. And I just wanted to remark on the fact that I was pretty keen on Put Your Hands Together before Lulamba and Lady Vigor Allen were ruled out. And now he's favourite. I'm a little bit disappointed because I don't look so shrewd. But I would have fancied him if they had run. So I think he's got a massive chance in that juvenile hurdle. I know he's 13-8 favourite now, but I think he'll take some serious catching. That performance at Cheltenham was just ridiculous. I think along with Factor Pilot was the most visually impressive performance of the week for me. And yeah, I think he's a proper Grade 1 horse on quick, well, good soft ground. I think he is. Filibustering in that race too each way. I think will run a decent race for Harry Derham. Those are my picks elsewhere on the card. Dan, have you got anything other than the Aintree Hurdle?
Nope, not a thing. Which is
Okay,
a good thing you
great.
guys had plenty, so we can move on quickly.
You know what? I
Agreement on
love
a Hoy Senor then.
that.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble. Big trouble.
Let's start by looking at the 145, which is the mild May on Friday. That sees Coolwell, Potter, Dancing City handstands. The Changing Man's in there. Don't rightly know. Love the fact she's been thrown in there too by Polly Gundry. Dan, come to you on this this 3 mile contest. Handstands the favourite. Coolwell, Potter so impressive at Cheltenham, second favourite.
Yeah, I know he was very impressive, but I can't see him getting the exact same setup and just being allowed to bowl along in better company here, for as much as it's a very open race. And it's amazing how a horse's reputation can flip so quickly. Handstands his favourite. Obviously, he's been kept fresh for this. I think he's pretty short at sub 2-1. I can see the appeal. They've always rated him, but I think the price of that is short enough when you've got the likes of a Stellar Story, obviously ran extremely well at Cheltenham. Keita Bourbon wasn't finished with when he fell. Can I just get a market on the Changing Man to somehow finish second? That'll do me. It just will, and it'll run in the national next year off 153 and still wouldn't have won anything, which
He'll
would
probably
be,
finish second in that, won't he?
and I'll be there. It's again one of those races where it's one of those classic Aintree Grade 1s. I feel where it's if you've really are strong on one, you're always going to get a decent price about them. It feels because they aren't just odds-on shots and XYZ. It feels like it's always an open look, but I don't think with many of these races across the 3 days, I really have much that sparks my betting interest.
Fair enough, mate. And as you say, a lot of these Grade 1s are trappy. This is no different. Jake, before I get to you, actually, I'm going to, as long as they stay 8 runners, I'm definitely going to have a bit each way on Don't Rightly Know. Polly Gundry is in charge of this horse. If it wasn't her and it was a Paul Nicholls, she'd be half the price she is. She'd be around about 10-1. She's got a little bit to find at the ratings, but she's unbeaten over fences so far. She's impressed me a lot with her jumping. And I think she's got plenty of upside. I know she's 10 years old and her rivals are all younger than she is, but she's quite lightly raced for her age. And I think there's a fair bit more to come from her fences. I think there could be a bit of improvement left in her. And yeah, around about 20-1 she is now. I think she's a good price. Jake, what do you like in the race?
Yeah, I mean, when I first looked at the race, I thought the handstands would just go and win. I looked a bit deeper. I looked into his pricing. He is quite short for what he's done. Like, if you actually could look at the bare form, he beat Resplendent Grey and then he beat Lord of Thunder with only 2 finish. Obviously, he beat Django by the last day and has been kept for this, but he is short enough for what he is, I think. I think he's a good horse. I don't think he's a proper Grade 1 horse. I think he'd be like a Grade 2 open company horse. So I could probably leave him. Caldwell Potter, I couldn't have him stepping up to 3 mile, 1 furlong in this race in Grade 1 company, to be honest. Look, he jumped really well the last day. As Dan said, will he get the same setup? I highly doubt it. The one I'd probably just give a really small, like, it wouldn't be as strong as Imperial Pass, but I would give a small chance to Dancing City just to be able to bounce back. Like, I'll just put a line through his Brown advisory run completely. When he made that mistake 3 out, he was literally just gone straight away. Like, he didn't even pick back up and start traveling again. Like, he just was gone straight away. So the fact that he would bounce on from Cheltenham to Aintree last year so well, won the race, absolutely hacked up in the Sefton. Perhaps Aintree is just his track, and I'd give him a small chance because, as you said, it's one of these trappy races where if he did bounce back to form, you wouldn't be shocked about it, would you?
No, absolutely not. You wouldn't be at all. No, fair enough. I can't wait for that race as well. I have to say, I'm really excited for Aintree this year. This will be class. The 220 next up, the William Hill Handicap Hurdle, over 2.5 miles. Extremely competitive, as you would imagine. Jake, comes straight back to you for this. Have you got a fantasy in it?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite keen on Wade Out. He's very profound in the market now. Unfortunately, a few of the Ante-Post leaders in the market came out, so he got pushed into even shorter than he probably should be. But if he starts to drift, I'll definitely have him on the side. He seems to have a preference for decent ground as well when he won at your Toxters, obviously second behind Celtic Dino at Ascot. Absolutely hacked up the last day at Wetherby over 2.5, so I don't really have too many issues about the trip, and I think 128 is definitely within him. The other one that I would have a small play on as well is probably Listen to Your Heart. Um, Again, the Skeltons have been aiming her at this race. Again, she's shown preference for good ground. She won a listed race at Newbury at the beginning of the season. I think she's ready for the step up to 2.5 now. The last twice she's had to run under a listed penalty because of that Newbury win. So she was against the Mares at Taunton, where she finished fourth for a pretty respectable run. But she then ran against Geldings over 2-2 in the Premier. And again, she had that penalty, so she wasn't getting the full £7 allowance, which she normally would get. So they step her up in trip here, off a mark of 127, and they got a £7 claim reward. So I think there's plenty to like, and we know the Skeltons love to target this race.
I'll tell you what, Jake, it's a big day, isn't it, for Harry Atkins? I mean, that's a vote of confidence from the trainer if ever I've seen one. He's only been 11 winners so far in his career, so this would be a very notable feather in his cap. And good luck to him, I say, on Listen to Your Heart. Okay, Jake, Dan, come to you for that one.
Yeah, and it's also a strange sort of tick in the box for Be Aware, the faith they're retaining in him, I guess, to Harry to keep riding him. And you've got some questionable characters in there. I mean, Kopek Demi is obviously now a favourite, which, again, a lot of forgiving individuals who are desperate to make that money back from piling into him Ante-Post at Cheltenham, but couldn't really be for me. I have to say, I quite like Reckless Eric here. I think he's a very good price at 14-1. Just a very impressive, likeable, improving young horse. And when he won on the November meeting, that looked a fairly deep novice handicap at the time, and he won comfortably there. And I think he's had valid excuses for getting beat all next three, and he's still run extremely well. Obviously, he was second in that race behind Mirabad, who just bolted from the front. He stayed on strongly, best of the rest. Shaped well at Windsor and in the Imperial Cup, where just very unlucky on both occasions, I thought. And he's definitely shaped as if he'll get further. He gets his ground. He's a good ground horse. It's a long straight at Aintree, so I think you have to stay thoroughly. But I think on this kind of surface, you need to be able to travel into your race applicably well. And the fact he's got confirmed good 2 mile handicap form, I think, is a massive positive. Only rated 130. I think there's still plenty of room for improvement in that. I thought 14-1 was a very good each way price.
Okay, Reckless Eric. Keeling was John Joe and AJ O'Neill there. I know that you guys think I'm a moron anyway, actually, rather than what I'm about to put up. But I am going to put forward Hellenwein here each way, and it's going to sound mental, but I really fancy him.
He's short as 12-1 in a place,
mate. I think
so. You're not alone, which worries me.
Smash, yeah.
I think there's a huge amount. There's a number of arguments pro his case that I can make, which I will do now. It's that look, we all know that when he started over fences this season at Warwick, he jumped beautifully. He finished second, looked like he needed the run. We all thought this is going to be a really smart novice chaser in the making. Whatever reason, he's just not gone on from there. I don't think he's in love with the chasing game. That's my impression. I think there's still talent there. I just don't think he's been enjoying it. This is his second start after a wind-up. He comes back over hurdles now. The last time we saw him over hurdles, he was winning that really competitive EBF final at Sandown last year. He's £6 higher than for that. That's definitely not handicapped out of things. He creeps into the bottom of the weights here. I was quite surprised, actually, he's got in. I didn't think he was going to, looking at the race. His rating last year wouldn't have got him in this race, but he is in, and he's towards the bottom of the weights. And stepping up in trip, I think, is going to help him too. I think potentially over 2 miles over fence, he's not really been cutting it. And I think maybe the extra distance is going to let him relax a bit more, get into a rhythm. And this ground's perfect for him too. I think he's got really strong claims each way. I think he's well handicapped, provided he's not just sort of mentally lost. But I don't think he really is just yet. You can't make that impression just yet. And I think hurdles might just be happier over hurdles. I can see him going really well in this.
If you're going to make the case for him, then I have to give a little mention to my old friend Blenkinsop, though he's 50-1. Yeah, I know. Which I realistically, I think this is probably sharp enough for him, but he was a huge eye catcher last time out in his second start after a long absence. He's won off this mark before. Now, last time he was running before he had that very long break, he was running in a Sefton. He was running the Grade 1 company. So he was rapidly progressive then. And I think he showed enough last time out to say that there are races to be won with him. Whether this is stiff enough for him at this stage, I'm not sure. But 50-1, I'd be remiss not to have a little nibble on my old friend at that kind of price.
You can go back on the winless ones to watch next year.
Oh God, no. It's a pain. Oh, I've already got to start thinking about that list. It's a long, painful list to build, let me tell you now.
You know what? I'm actually really pleased that I haven't had the opprobrium I was expecting for putting up Helm. So cheers,
You
lad.
know what? I feel like we've done enough of that this year. So I feel like you know what we're going to say without saying it, and sometimes that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for him to go and win. It'd be great. Okay.
Hmm.
Next up, we've
Then you'll
got the
wake up.
350. Next up, we've got the 330, which is the Melling Chase. I mean, I don't think there's a huge amount to say on this, other than the fact that um, I've had a few decent judges state claims for our Fabiolo. I can't have him myself to beat John Bond, but obviously they have a pretty intertwined history, I suppose. But for me, John Bond takes all the beating. I'm sure he'll win this. Dan, what do you think? Same?
Yeah, I mean, you're very much relying on El Fabiale returning onto
Mm.
himself of a year and a half ago, aren't you? Effectively, I mean, for as much as he has beaten John Bond a couple of times, or mainly in the Arkle, obviously John Bond firmly put him in his place at Sandown, and then he hasn't really been the same horse since, or especially since he's returned. So, I mean, John Bond made hard work of this last year. It was he got it done eventually, but whether he does feel the effects of a fairly long enough season, I'm not so sure. But it's not a betting race; it's a pretty poor turnout. You imagine Matata will invariably have to go forward, Protector out will be handy, and that'll kind of just set it up. So interesting tactical little battle you got on because John Bond won't want to be far away either. But I suspect John Bond will just win. But again, not a race to have a bet in.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a shame the turnout. I remember the days of Flemenstar taking on Sprinter Sacra, and I think Q Card might have been in there as well. It was a tremendous field, and this is a bit of a shadow of its former self. But at least we have got the sort of star 2 mile, 2.5 miler in the lineup in John Bond. Jake, do you think John Bond's going to win?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that El Fabiolo is somehow still rated higher than
Yeah.
John Bond. He's got 170, John Bond
No
169, so not
handicaps for
a
you,
lot of
Elfab.
maneuver. I know, exactly. But yeah, and I mean the fact that El Fabiolo was beaten by Senesi the last day would be enough to put me off him. As much as if he did bounce back, he clearly would have a good chance based on their battles in the past. But yeah, no, it should be John Bonds to win.
Okay, Topham Chase next. It's a cracking renewal, I have to say. It's so good. I love it. I just love Aintree. Have I said that yet? It's the 405, and
This man will be bringing all the enthusiasm in the world to racing TV coverage this week. My word.
Yeah.
And too right. Love it.
people are going to see me and just switch off. Good. Um, right, the 405 is the Topham, and you know what? I might go first this time. How about that? It's a bit of a change up, isn't it? I quite like the chance of Fantastic Lady, actually. Each way, around about 20, 25 to 1 for Nikki Anderson. She was second in the race in 2023. That was in soft ground, but she handles this ground just fine. And she's £2 lower than for that. Sorry, she's £1 higher than for that performance, but she's off the same mark as when she beat Garlaw at Sandown. That was a good performance in this kind of ground. She handles the fences really well, and provided she's over that run at Cheltenham from last time, and I don't think she really handled cheap pieces. I think she's a proposition here, particularly just because she runs this track so much better, seemingly, than everyone else. So fantastic lady each way for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing Bad again as well. He's been a revelation really in blinkers, winning his last two. He probably would have won Ascot before that as well, knowing what he's done since. Had he not fallen, he was going really well at the time. And up and up to £6. I don't think he's handicapped out of things just yet. So if he takes to the fences, I think Bad's going to run really well. He does jump very well too. So yeah, I can see him running a big race. Dan, what do you think about the Topham?
Very good race. Yeah, it's I almost think this is more interesting as a spectacle in the betting proposition than the National is, because I think the National you can rule out half of them pretty much instantly, whereas some of these I think you can actually make a fair case for at bigger prices. So it's always an eclectic mix of horses.
Mhm.
I find it's like, oh, one sec, why are you here? And then you think, oh, actually, that no, it could actually work for you. So it's a really good spectacle that not one I've got a massively strong view on, but the one I thought was interesting was the other Henderson horse that you didn't mention was Cello, who Nico has
Mm.
seemingly chosen, and he's 33 to 1. He came with a very large reputation from France, and he hasn't quite delivered on it yet. But I also think he's been very strangely campaigned. Like he's very much mixed hurdling and chasing, and I think realistically, he's an intermediate trip chaser who needs good ground, and he's only ever had that once, and he won at Ascot beating Solo in admittedly a small field. So he's mainly been over hurdles this season, But he ran at Sandown last time out over 3 miles, where he was jumping the last in front and somehow ended up finishing fourth. He just does not stay 3 miles. The horse is dropping back in trip of a very good record. He's off a featherweight, 132, 10 stone 2 is tiny. I think it's interesting that Nico's almost retaining the faith in him. And these kind of young French bred horses do tend to excel in these kind of races. Cheek Pieces on for the first time, I think, is interesting because I think there have been occasions where he's running big fields and not necessarily loved it. So that would have to be a bit of a concern in the 30 runner race. But it's one of those where you get horses like him pop up, and I actually think he ticks a lot of boxes in terms of trends and angles I like. So 33 to 1, I thought he was worth a play, but I think it's going to be a brilliant race. I think it's got a lot of interesting ones in here.
Yeah, sneaks in, doesn't he, Excello? Right down the bottom, 30 of 30. So a very nice racing weight. Nico de Boyville on board in the first time Cheek Pieces. Good stuff, Dan. Jake, top, what do you think?
Yeah, it is a really good race. This is actually a race where I do have an Ante-Post angle. It's obviously one of the only races that will put up Ante-Post, but I do actually really fancy Glenn Gooley for the Willie Mullins team. If you go back and watch the National last season, he was absolutely winging around that first circuit. He loved the game. I did ask Dan on the actual race IQ data for this, and I think he made links at 8 of the first 9 fences. So that says, a fair amount. But
Then he didn't
doesn't
like
really...
the game.
Yeah. On the second circuit, he actually started the first line of 6. He jumped them all really well, jumped the canal turn, and much better the second time round than he did the first time round. But then, as I said, he just doesn't stay further than 3 miles. He barely stays 3 miles, to be honest. So at that point, he started to tire. I think it was the 23rd fence. He then ended up unshipping his rider quite unceremoniously. But yeah, he just had nothing left to give, and you could see that from when he jumped the fence before that. So dropping back to 2 mile 5 furlong is just absolutely ideal. He's been dropped £2 in the weights as well in the meantime, which is obviously only going to help him. And Danny Mullins has been booked for the ride, which is obviously what you want for a front runner over the national fences. That's pretty much the ideal booking. So yeah, I'd be all over Glenn Gooley. On this season, like he unshipped at Gore Run again where he got tired, but that was the race where he got absolutely mullered at the start. His jockey lost his irons right at the start. A couple of them unseated, didn't they? I think McDermott unseated that day. And yeah, the race was just gone straight away. He managed to pull himself all the way up to 4th, but that was so much wasted energy for a horse who barely stays 3 miles. And in a Fiestes chase, you're never going to be able to get away with that. So yeah, put a line through his last couple of runs, going Gooley over the national fences. I'm all in.
Great stuff. And a really good argument made there, Jake, as well. On Friday, we also have the top novices hurdle. We have the Sefton and we have the boys race at the end of the card. Anything else for you, Jake?
Yeah, in the Sefton, I quite like Calafet on Vol. Obviously, he is the favourite, but he skipped the Albert Bartlett quite importantly. When he won the Sydney Banks Memorial, he's shaped like in desperate need of 3 miles. Obviously, he gets that here. Seems to have a preference for good ground. Before that, he was behind the New Lion. He obviously absolutely bolted up on his hurdles debut. So he's got that bit of star quality about him in a race which doesn't really have that much star quality at all. I think Familiar Dreams off 140 is the highest rated in the field, and she's obviously a mare, but I don't even know how she's managed to get 140, to be honest. I thought she's been very disappointing this season. So yeah, he's got 137 already. I think he's bang in the mix, and I think he'll improve massively for the 3 miles. And then in the last is probably I'd say my nap of the meeting, to be honest. Celtic Dino in the 2 mile conditional jockeys race. He's got everything in his favour here. Obviously, we've been waiting all season to get that good ground again. He started off with the season absolutely bolting up. Beat Marchand too, who's like a 130 rated horse. And then he went and beat Wade out and Joyeuse in that introductory hurdle at Ascot. 2 really good runs. Kind of got lost in a bit of in the middle of the winter. Like he's ran 2 graded races. He's not disgraced himself at all. He's finished 4th in the Formby at Aintree on Boxing Day, where it was way too soft, and he still finished 4th. And then he went to Kempton for the Dovecote, which in most years would be properly good ground and he would have every chance. But this year it rained overnight, ruined his chances, unfortunately. Again, plugged on for 3rd, decent enough run. It's been given a mark of 132. Dylan Johnson obviously claims the £3. And very sneakily, they've left in Lump Sum as the top weight and put Will Biddick on to ride just to keep his weight down as well. So he only has to carry 10-13. So yeah, I think everything's in his favour. He's about 7 to 1. He would be a very, very strong fancy of mine.
Okay, Celtic Dino for you then, Jake, in the boys' race at the end of the card. The Sefton, the horse that you just mentioned, I quite fancy actually, Familiar Dreams. I think this kind of trip is exactly what she wants. She showed a new lease of form when winning in Grade 3 company against her own sex last time at Limerick, but I thought she showed a really nice turn of foot that day. That was over 2.6. I think she'll improve even more over 3 miles, and she gets that weight allowance. She's clearly improving. As you say, she's top rated, even though she won't deserve it just yet. And the other one in that race I like is Battleborn Lad. We've seen the likes of Gelino Bello, Santini, Ahoy Senor all lead in this race. Battleborn Lad will probably try and do that. That's what he did at Haydock. That was his first start over 3 miles. He loved it. Loads of stamina there. And I think he's got a good chance for the Walford team. Be nice for them to have a really big performer at this kind of level. Anything else I like? That might be it. Yeah, I think that's it. I like 2 in the Sefton. Dan, what about you, rest of the card?
I love that Glenn Gooley for Jake was all in, and then he comes along with actually there's one I fancy more. I'm not sure what that is. I guess that's the equivalent of you win on the roulette table, you just let it ride. I assume that's just the strategy moving on here. But I'd fully agree. Celtic Dina all the way in the boys' race. It screams almost it's too obvious, and I'm surprised he's almost as big a price he is. I thought he'd be somewhat shorter than his current price, and that is just poor lump sum is just being. He's had such a good season, and now he's like the make weight for Celtic Dino, which is just unnecessary. But you got to love the game.
Imagine the call to Will Biddick saying, "Sorry, lads, do you mind riding for us? We've got one for you."
Well, we've got 147 rated horse for you to ride. He's gonna be making the running for either one. No,
Yeah.
no need. But no, I'd be fully in that. I don't need to add on to what Jake said, but yeah, I'd be very strong on Celtic Dino as well.
Going to move on to Saturday, and first up, talk about the Mersey Novices Hurdle. This is over 2.5 miles, and at this stage that we're doing the recording, we only have entries, so it's difficult to know what the final field's going to be, but nevertheless, we have a fairly decent idea. Jake, anything in this race that appeals?
Well, I mean, the Lambert's going to take the beating if he is as good as we think he is, but I could not believe that he ended up here, to be honest. That Aintree, the 4-year-old anniversary hurdle was an absolute penalty kick for him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he's got to put your hands together to beat, but you'd fancy the Triumph second to beat the Boodles winner most years. So yeah, I couldn't believe that he's going to go against the Open Company novices in this race, but seemingly think 2.5 is going to help him. His rating of 148 plus getting the £10 off the rest of them, like it's going to be very hard for anything to come and beat him here unless he doesn't perform.
It's difficult. I mean, I don't really know what's going on with Lou Lambert. I see it's completely bamboozled me, and I think it's completely bamboozled everybody. I actually don't think he'll be declared tomorrow. I could easily have egg on my face. And
wouldn't surprise me.
Well, with that in mind, I do like a horse that's just been bought by JP actually. Honesty Policy. He's entered up just the once. If he is declared, I think he's got a big chance. He won a Leopardstown Novice Hurdle last time over 2 miles. He didn't get a clear run until late, and then he flew home and did very well to win, really. And for all the world, looks though a step up to 2.5 miles is going to suit. He's going to be better than a mark of 132. I've no doubts about that. He looks a proper improver. He tries really hard, and he jumps well too. So for me, Honesty Policy, the 5-year-old, is a horse to follow going forward. This might come a little bit soon in his career, but I think he'll run a big race around about 16-1 in that Turner Novices Hurdle. Looking forward to seeing how Horace's Pearl gets on too. Dan, what do you think about that race?
Yeah, it's interesting. It threw a lot of Ante-Post punters away, I'd say, and Nicky putting him in uproar yet again in certain circumstances. As I say, he's making the market for everything else. The only one I observed that I thought was just overpriced was Fingal Bridge, because he's about 6 points bigger in the betting than Regent Stroll, and to my mind, he beat him comprehensively at Exeter, and there was absolutely no excuse. He did everything better than Regent Stroll did, and yet he's somehow a bigger price, and that's got to be purely reputation. But Fingalbridge has done nothing wrong. He's free from 3 other hurdles and looked good in every start. I think stepping up 2.5 miles would definitely improve him, despite showing plenty of speed. Clearly goes well on good ground as well. I thought at 20-1, he was probably the overpriced one, considering you're looking at everything else in the betting, and it's a bit of a mishmash of profiles, but I think he's definitely going. This has always been the target since Exeter, obviously for a combination that are going extremely well. So at 20-1, I thought probably he was the overpriced one against the Lambert.
Okay, yeah, going to be interesting to see how declarations shape up when we have them. That comment applies to the 2:30, the William Hill Chase over 3 miles, another handicap. And Dan, I'll come back to you for this one. Do you fancy anything in this?
Oh, hello, darkness, my old friend. Imperial Saint is here.
Oh, come
Um,
on! I knew you were going to do that. Come on.
and yeah, I can't help myself because unfortunately he just ticks so many trend boxes. Like,
Yeah.
he's almost like a wet dream for trend fans. And I used to be that. I'm not so much anymore, but I think he just, with the exception of my town, who's obviously in here, and whether he can back that up, what we saw last time out, is another story. But especially if Sam Brown runs and keeps the weights down for Imperial's sake, because otherwise he'll be lumbered with top weight. I think he's just got a very good chance. It's a race that suits unexposed types with graded form, stepping up in trip. He's all of that. The yard have a good record in the race. He's already won 3 times at the track. Generally goes prominently. And they've always said he's a 3 miler in waiting. I think they've realised that he was entered in the 2.5 mile grade one. That was a bit of a let's steady now, lads. We're not quite that good, but I think you're definitely up to winning a decent 3 mile handicap with conditions in your favour. So I think he's at 12 to 1 or so currently. I think that would be a cracking bet. And just on related form lines, I know Richmond Lake's around 25, 33 to 1, and he pulled up in the Ultima last time, having made a bad mistake. But before that, he'd been very consistent, always really has been. I think his stamina is just stretched over 3 miles when the ground is testing. But he ran really well at Haydock and Uttoxeter, not beaten all that far, £2 lower now. And he's £9 better off with Imperial Saint for when they met here on Boxing Day for a 6.5 length defeat. Goes well here, has done many times in the past, and was just one of those I thought would be one of the more overpriced ones relative to him. But Imperial Saint would be the main one for a bit of justice in a handicap.
You know, it'd be lovely to see that, wouldn't it? After what happened earlier in the season, Imperial
Me
Saint
and
for,
me,
for
me with Johnson White and Philip Hobbs saying, you know what, you're all right. All is forgiven.
I genuinely
They're like,
never
who are
thought I would
you?
even imagine the day that would happen.
No, me neither. It might not happen yet. We don't know.
Jake, what about you in that race? Do you fancy anything?
Yeah, I mean, this is a race full of exposed, out of form, old horses that I just, it's so hard. I could rule out like 80% of the field just by their profiles of the horses in there. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Imperial Saint as well. Before Meartown came into this race, rather than going for the grade one, I thought that he was a cracking bet. I still think he's a good bet. Obviously, Meartown's up £15. He's now been punted into around 3 to 1 favourite. Look, I'm just going to be happy to let him win at that price. If he goes and wins, it wouldn't surprise me at all because the way that he won the ultimate obviously was very impressive, and they've gone for the weaker race rather than going for the grade one, even though they kind of fancied themselves in the build-up for the grade one. So yeah, I'd be happy to leave Meartown alone. And as Dan said, Imperial Saint has got everything going for him. He's one of the only progressive horses in the field. And again, that all important top weight Sam Brown being in there means he only has to carry, was it 11-2 rather than top weight. So that
I
that
love
is
Sam
very,
Brown
very
so
useful.
much.
Sam Brown is a legend.
Okay, good stuff, Jake. I'm gonna go with the booster Bob. Go on, my
He's
boy.
probably the only other progressive one, yeah.
Yeah, he might be. And stepping up to three
If
miles.
he just needs to come from 45 lengths off the pace and he'll be there.
Well, that's it though. That's exactly right. But hopefully, over 3 miles, 3 miles one, he's going to be able to go with them a little bit further and not get outpaced at a crucial point as he did last time. So,
Will you
yeah,
go
fingers
back in
crossed.
on running when if he's like 5 lengths detached after the first like four? Will you just say yes, it's perfect posse, let's go?
No, I will tear up my docket. He's not going to
Ah,
do
fair
that
play.
again. Definitely not Aintree anyway. Um, he likes the ground though. He's gone on good to soft a couple of times in his career. And as you say, he's one of the few progressive ones in it. And he looked like he wants 3 miles every day of the week last time. So he'll do for me in that. Okay, good stuff. Right, move on to the big one, the Randrocks Grand National itself. It's 4 p.m. on Saturday, and we're all very much looking forward to it. Jake, I'm going to come back to you for this. It's a renewal full of classy horses, right towards the 160s, 70s rating, isn't it? It's a proper renewal this year. Loads of horses got good chances. Who do you fancy to win?
Yeah, as you said, it's a nice open renewal. There's plenty of horses that you can give a shout to. Obviously, you can still rule out half the field pretty much, but there's still plenty of horses in there of the remainder that have great chances and you can make strong cases for. The one I've been a long-term fan of is Iroko. I will definitely be keeping him on side. I don't have any reason to not continue my journey with him. Yeah, he's been campaigning the whole season for the Grand National. They've said that at multiple occasions before the season, after being beaten, etc., etc. His whole season's been around the Grand National. I'm not going to desert him now. I think he's got a great chance. The ones at a bit bigger prices that are probably a bit more interesting to hear about. Grange Colour West, I actually do think has got a pretty decent chance. I think he actually has a bit of a preference for some nicer ground. Obviously, it's going to be guaranteed good to soft ground on the national course all week because they'll make sure it's watered to such. So it's going to be proper good to soft ground, which is absolutely fine for him. The run that I just can't shake is when he was second in the second in the Irish Gold Cup 2 runs back. That was really eye-catching because he just stayed and stayed and stayed. Obviously, ended up beating Factor File on the line just behind Galopin Des Champs. That race, if he can run to that type of form, obviously he would have a massive chance. I think he stays. I think he jumps. I think he can actually quicken. I think he can. He's not a slow horse at all. And he had that injury after being a Grade 1 novice winner, and now he's been off the track, and they've just slowly brought him along again. So I think he's got a really good chance. He's off a 163. It's high enough. I think Brian Hayes is going to be on, which is probably not the ideal jockey booking that you'd want from the Willie Mullins yard, but I think he is a really nice horse, and you can put a line completely through his last run at Navan because they purely ran him there to qualify for the race. He had to run in another chase to qualify for the Grand National, so they just stuck him in a 2.5 mile race and said off you go. So yeah, I think he's got a good chance. And the one that I know everyone's going to groan about, but I'm going to give a small squeak to because he's been trained
No,
for the race.
no.
Free Card Bragg is going to
There
have
it
a good
is.
chance here. Sean Bowen is going to give him the ride of his life, and he probably won't win, but I could see him running a big race. So that'll be my 1, 2, 3. Iroko, Grange West, Free Card Bragg.
Okay, mate, love it, absolutely love it, and perhaps some slightly unorthodox ones there. Grange West, 3 card Bragg, bigger prices, good stuff. I'll just nip in before Dan. Intense Raffle's been a bit of a drifter. I think that's because of the ground, but I'm going to go with what his trainer Tom Gibney says, that he'll be fine on it. They are going to water a fair bit. There's no doubt about that before the national. They're not going to want it to be quick ground. They're going to want to look after these horses. They're going to want it to be on the softer side of good to soft. I think they're going to put a lot of water down, and I think Intense Raffles is going to be fine on it. He won the Irish National last year. He warmed up for this with a brilliant second behind Nick Rocket after a 14th over hurdle. So I think you can mark that up as well, that run last time. He's got a lovely racing weight. I think he's classy enough to win this. He's a brilliant jumper, and he'll stay. So I think he ticks all the boxes for me, Intense Raffles. He's my number 1. Number 2, I'm going to go Vanillier. He was second in the race 2 years ago. Blinkers have rejuvenated him the last couple of starts. He obviously went the wrong way at Cheltenham last time, which was a bit of a shame. Ran a mighty race in the circumstances to finish third, given the fact he went from first to last, and had to make up all the ground again. And then in third, I'm going to go with 3 under through 5, a big price for Paul Nicholls. He's got a proven stamina, but he likes this ground. He's a good jumper. He's pretty solid in my view. He comes off the back of 2 good starts at Ascot, particularly last time when beating the nose by Victorino. And if he stays the distance, I can see him picking up a place. He might not be good enough to win, but I can see him get an each way spot. Harry Skelton, good jockey booking as well, Paul Nicholls. So he appeals to me 3 under through 5 at a big price. And those are my 1, 2, 3 for the national. Dan, finally, what are yours?
I'll go reverse order. Intense Raffles, I think, will be third. If they water to the point where it's slower than good to soft, then the game's over. Because that'll just be ludicrous, to be honest. I
don't think it'll be soft ground. I don't think it'll be soft ground, but I think there'll be juice in the good to soft.
Good to soft, fine. But if it gets slower than that, then we might as well pack up and go home, to be honest. Because that would be a final nail in the coffin. Intense Raffles, I think if this was slower ground and almost an old school style Grand National, he would be 4-1 favourite for this. Because I think he would be perfect for it. But the concern is the ground. Still think he has outstanding claims. And it's quite remarkable that you look at the 3-year-old hurdle from Old Toy just under 4 years ago. Intense Raffles beats Iroko, and here they are towards the head of the betting for a Grand National. Some form line. Just think he ticks a lot of boxes. Always been the plan. I can see him being the type to run well, like I say, like third, fourth. Not got all that much for it, and then they almost come back again next year, hoping for softer ground. He's got time on his side, so I think that could almost be his type of profile. Second, I'll have Malala Kakuna, who has been a bit of a long-term fancy, and I'm still not sure what to make of the booking. For Jonathan Burke, is a jockey I like a lot. It's just so odd for Willie Mullins to book a jockey. Even the fact even for him to have a jockey like when he's declared a horse is unheard of. Normally you have to wait 3 hours. For him to do it days in advance is unprecedented. But I'm trying to think positively, and ultimately I just think he's a Grade 1 novice hurdler in his past, second in a couple of more. Came right in the spring last year with a third in the Irish National. It was only 4 lengths behind Intense Raffles that day. He's better. on better terms here and better ground. He's more in his favour. Then he won the Bet365. The stamina's no issue. Brought along slowly this season. Always the plan, I would imagine, and showed more in the Bobby Joe last time. And number one is my good old friend, my old pal, the King George hero, and the horse I'll always hold close to my heart for what he did that day is Hewick. Again, ground dependent. It has to be decent ground. It looks like it's all going to check out, and I think he just has everything you'd almost need for a modern style Grand National. Not over big, but he's had the pace to win a Galway Plate off a mark of 55. He's won marathon trips before. He won the Bet365 off 149. Wasn't beaten all that far behind Galloping to Champ and Fast or So in the Punchestown Gold Cup 11 months ago. And he's been running bang up to form this season. Obviously, a narrow second to Envoy Len in the Ladbrokes Champion Chase. Ran perfectly well in the Irish Gold Cup. Nice confidence booster over hurdles last time out. Marker 162 is fine for a horse of his calibre. And I think he has the kind of style and class to travel well enough. But I think he's also got no questions about stamina. I know he's been popular recently, but I don't think I've backed him since that King George. Now it's time to go in again.
Love it. I tell you what, a lot of people, I think, fancy him to run a big race. Wouldn't it? It'd be one of those fairy tale stories, wouldn't it, for Hewick to win?
God.
And
we would not hear the end of it.
Yes,
no, I know.
How much did he cost
from
again?
me. That figure remains unknown.
Yeah, undisclosed fee.
Love it. Right, that brings us almost to an end. But Jake, anything else on Saturday's card that you fancy?
It's tough about decks. I'd give a small shout to Quaviste in the bumper for the Skeletons. Harry's going to ride. The horse that he beat the last day was Wandering Ego, who had a bit of experience going into that race, and he's absolutely bolted up the other day. So the form looks pretty strong. I'd say he's pretty good. But other than that, it's difficult at this stage.
Yeah, it is pretty hard without declarations. Dan, what about you? Anything else?
Cat's out of the bag with the price, really, but I think Mr. Hope Street in the 3 mile handicap hurdle has just been plotted around without a shadow of a doubt. And I've been waiting for the time he steps back up to 3 miles, and he's been entered up like a few times over the course past few months. And I've always been waiting for him just to run, and he never has. But Saturday's the day in the opener, and I know he's not been missed in the market with thanks to the Road to Aintree piece, but I think he's got a massive chance off 127.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a plot, isn't it? That's for sure. It's just the strength of Dan Skelton's stable to be able to have a horse that good that he can just keep back for 4 months and not run. With a one target in mind at an Aintree handicap hurdle. There you go. Great stuff, guys. Thanks very much indeed. That is the end of our Aintree podcast, and hopefully we get some winners. I think I might have said it already, lads, but I can't wait for Aintree this year.
You haven't shown any excitement. This is news to me.
We'd love to get your likes and support on this. Any subscriptions or likes would be great for us. We really do appreciate all your support that you've shown us throughout the entire campaign. So thank you, and do keep it coming. It really does help us out. And we're on the road to 3,000 subscribers. We're not far off yet, so fingers crossed we can get there by the time Aintree finishes. I don't think Jake will be finished yet on the jump show for the season, will we? I imagine there'll be something brewing for something like Punchestown or Sandown, something like that.
Yeah, potentially. We'll see what everyone's schedules are, and we'll let everybody know on social media as always.
We shall indeed. Until next time on the Jump Show, best of luck for Aintree. Let us know what you think in the comments. It's goodbye.